My dear friends, I do think so that the greatest, I would say, double crime of the modern world is that we are confused and we are cowards. If we would have clear ideas which motivate a man from childhood on, and we would have a resolved nature, habit, individuality, determination, many things, number one, that would disappear, many problems would have never come up. You talk to, or I talk to, people to whom I am only a naturalized citizen. But believe me, just as a convert, for whom this religion in what he converted means more than you, for you. Don't forget, in my poor old Hungary, first I was born in a paralyzed country which was trimmed down to 1/3 of its original size after the First World War. I was a 6, 7, 8 years old child when I verbally starved. I was not eating for 2.5 days and I was in grade 1. I fainted in the school from starvation. God was gracious enough to give me this experience. It was very easy to talk and to understand. That doesn't mean it's nothing, but much more to go through it. We criticized the neighbor, but we never put on his moccasin. God was so gracious to me to allow to go through all these things first-hand, personal experience. I am here now in a country where the national anthem talks about that our flag is waving in the air over the homes of the braves. I would like to know, not by individuality, because I don't want to put to shame anybody, if God would be gracious enough to send down an angel which would show a statistic that from the 250 millions, how many people are brave. One of our most devilish phrase nowadays, and I even plan to make it a praising phrase, you are sophisticated. If you would know what this phrase really means, a couple thousand years ago, a sophist for a short while was a guy who loved wisdom. Very soon this phrase meant that this guy is a sophisticated man who can prove that white is black and red is green. Which means a twisted-minded, shrewd crook. This is why the world is where it is. I would first not execute any of the criminals. I would execute those educators who educated criminals. Because God is not allowed to come to school, but the TV, the pornography is allowed to come to school. We want to commemorate nowadays, and especially this afternoon, one of the very few serious persons, a Christian in the purest sense of the word. I would like to plunge in the middle of something you saw now, a Wallenberg film, and I would like to start with the questions what many times my Jewish brethren address to me as to a Hungarian of Polish origin and Viennese German mother tongue. When they say, okay, Tibor, we believe in spite of your big nose, you are not of Jewish origin. We believe you that you didn't get any money from the Jews. Could you tell us, I got many questions in Buffalo Jewish Center, and why did you protect Jews? First, I got a little bit scandalized when I got first this question. And I gave back from my heart a cordial, nasty reply. I told you, think Jews that you are so worthless that you are not worth to be protected? What kind of question is that? But if you want to know, I protected you for the sake of a Jew. Who is that? Hopefully a very good friend. By no doubt, the best friend of mine for lifetime, and the name of the Jew is Jesus Christ. whatever Christian denomination you belong, you will never find a single word in the New Testament that Christ ordered to write down his teaching. Some people who felt a real normal need, I don't want to go into too deep biblical explanations, but a little bit yes. St. Matthew thought so, he will write it down for the Jews. St. Mark, we can call it the Gospel of St. Peter, because he followed St. Peter and jotted down things and took the first Gospel as a little help. He was a little young, enthusiastic boy who at night time went out to the street, watching what noise it is, when Jesus Christ was taken for hearing to Pontius Pilate. And when they wanted to catch him, he left his nightgown in their hands and ran away nude. He wrote down about himself. The third person who thought it has to be written down was St. Luke, a very likely educated physician. He was really a very conscientious man, went to man to interview Holy Mary, this, that, many of the beautiful things you read nowhere else but in this conscientious book of St. Luke. What I want to bring out in connection with Wallenberg, what it has to do with the Bible, that Christ never said with a single word to write it down, but he said to follow me. Nothing is wrong when we wrote until now 5,689,000 theological books, but they are all worthless if you don't follow me. He never said write it down, but he said quite a few times follow me. And if we, the so-called Christians living in a good, quiet society, think that following him is so easy, I want to remind you that 2,000 years ago, he willingly used a very disgusting comparison. If somebody wants to follow me, should take up his cross every day and following me. We heard that so often, for us it's irrelevant. You know that in the old time, to shame somebody, he had to put the gallows on his own shoulder and carry it out to the execution place. And Christ wanted to compare following him to remind us that very often by the crooked world, we should be labeled by the crooks that we are the crook. Put a shame. That we should shame God. The lousy, miserable pornographers on the TV don't shame themselves, but I should shame Christ and God. From childhood on, we had very nice and close and intimate Jewish friends. A lady from whom I just got 5 days ago a letter from California, she's here now. God gave me a chance to save almost the entire family. God was gracious, her husband was saved by only other good people. In this time he was already in a so-called working camp, but he came home. But except the husband, all the rest of the members, 2 grandmas and so on and so were saved by me. As a matter of fact, we even prepared ourselves if the parents would have been killed. Her son, who is now a doctor of chemistry and a patent lawyer in a suburb in Los Angeles, this boy would have become my stepson. If his parents, all the documents were ready, his parents would have been killed. In this book is the protection letter, the copy of the letter of this young gentleman. What I want to bring out now, I don't jump too far that you should be able to follow me. What I want to bring out, when I came to save only one family first, and within 10 days or so, I found myself in the middle of the greatest turmoil, and my nice boss, His Excellency Angelo Rotta, the Apostolic Nuncio, asked me, Tibor, would you accept the job of becoming the executive secretary of the entire papal Jewish protection movement of Hungary? He was a sweet, nice, round-faced Italian guy, very, very nice. Not only ordained priest, but a priestly spirit. When we were two together, I didn't call him Excellency, I called him only what the priest like to hear, Father. I said, tell me, Father, what the hell should I tell you? I should not accept. I know nobody will accept. I know that these people are in need. Of course I accept it. The first evening, he asked me, I know my time is very limited, I don't want to overspeak time. The first evening we were sitting and having dinner together. It was around 8:30, 8:40, October evening, 1944. He had shown me a name list of almost 50 Jews. The list was made by the effort of heroic children. This I say to all my Christian and Jewish friends, predominantly for those who believe the damn lie that the Pope did not do his moral duty. I wish every Jew and every Christian should do once towards me the same moral duty what the Pope did to them. I am the living witness. Those Christians were playing very near to a transitory Jewish camp in Buda North called Ancient Buddha. And the old nuncio had shown me a sheet of about 47, 48 names. And these names were collected by Christian children who played intentionally near to the fence of this brick factory, which was in this time out of order. It was a war for more than 1 year. There was no work there. And the premises of this brick factory were used for a transitory Jewish camp. The Jews were there between 1 day and 5 days, depends what the order of the Nazis was. And the Christian kids between 11 and 16 played very near to the fence of this. And they found little papers in the grass, and they put a little paper here, and they went home, and on one paper was Isaac Schwartz, 12 Dobutza, so and so, I think we are carried in this direction. And Isabel, I don't know, Schlesinger, so and so. And from these little papers, if the Nazis would have seen what they do, they would have killed them or beat them down to crippleness. Would you, American kid, would you, Jewish kid, to come to a place like this when I am behind the fence, would you do for me the same? So Jesus Christ first did not want 2 million, couple 100,000 theological books. He wanted us to follow him. If there would be a man, not black or yellow or whatever, but a green man, in the moment you conceive in the womb of your mother, the good Lord creates you a soul. So in God we are all brothers and sisters. But don't say that, do it. God was gracious enough to Wallenberg, to me, and to some others, that he allowed us to put this belief into actions. When I went first to this brick factory, my sweet old Italian nuncio told me, son, there is a very complicated Hungarian name. In order to shock you, I pronounce it. If one or two Hunkis are in this room, they understand. The name in Hungarian is Nagybátor Újlaki Ultrasej Téglagyár. And this was the name of this factory. And the nuncio asked me, do you know where this is? I told him, yes, as a matter of fact, 5 minutes from my home. Amazing. It was, as I told you, was near to 9 o'clock in the evening. Would you go tomorrow morning? I told him, certainly not. No. What do you want? To go now. I don't give the Nazis time the whole night. I can move away those Jews. Yeah, but what can happen there? My answer was only, Excellency, if you called me to sit beside the table and trample together, nothing will happen. You called me for action, yes? Now let us do the action. He wanted to give me a little lousy car called Opel. Many of the drivers know the Opel. I said to him, no, I don't need that car. So by what do you want to give? You go. Oh, give me your Rolls Royce. Looked at me, why do you need my Rolls Royce? Because I have to impress the Nazis, therefore. And I impressed them, and I quarreled with them, and by the grace of the good Lord, I finally made them to open the gates of the factory, which was locked and chained. And God was so good to me that from about as I told you, I don't know for sure, between 46 or 48 or 49, a little bit less than 50, I found 43 Jews. I took them away from there. Then I went to the Austro-Hungarian border, what you can read in the book about Wallenberg, he was there. And we brought home people from there. If any of you has friends in Buffalo, many of you will be, you don't have to be a Catholic. One of the best groups in the United States too is a little group of nuns called Grey Sisters, in a simple way, from the habit, or Sisters of Social Service. They were one of my underground people, because officially I protected only 3,000 persons. Unofficially, very likely 5, 6, 7, 8,000. God will once tell how many, but my guessing is from there, because I know from the portion of food. I knew how many food my 3,000 Jews needed, and I knew how many my underground needed. And the underground need was always more than double. So if so many potatoes for this, 2, 3 times for the underground. And God was so good to me, as far as I can tell you, we never know for absolute sure. Very few of those goods which were given to the Jews were stolen. God was very nice to me. Most of my helpers and workers were honest and not gangsters. So the thing went to the proper place. We were very tricky, you know, this would be so good. You know what Jesus Christ once said? It is so bad that the sons of the world in their own nature are smarter than the sons of God. Which means several times in the name of honesty we are stupid and idiotic and let ourselves cheat out by the evil people. We try to be smart and cheat out the evil people, not let us cheat out by them. So really it came to the point that we were able to save quite a number of people fairly successfully, almost until the last moment, of course, when I was deported by the Russians, because you see, this is again, don't be born American naive. If one has on his head a swastika, not only he is the bad guy, the other guy who is on his cap a red star is bad too, but if I would be a miserable crook and I would have on my cap a crucifix, not a symbol means something, it will mean what do I put in behind of this symbol, yes? Don't let yourself fool. The nice, you understand me, I hope so you don't misunderstand quotation mark, the nice little Adolf Hitler killed only about 14 million people. So many Jews, so many Poles, so many Germans, lots of Germans, you don't know that. While communism only in Russia killed 1 million persons every year. So between 1917 and now, at least 65, 70 million Russians or other nationality only in Russia. I don't talk about the other countries. This is why I want to say be very cautious, very, very cautious. If you are not alert, one puppet in the hand of the devil was the Nazi leader. The other puppet in the power, not even hand of the devil, was the communist leader. You think you can trust them more? No. You talk to a person who was labeled a communist by the Nazis, who was labeled a Nazi by the communists. Wonderful. And I was sentenced by the communists for 9 years for what I put in effect, really 5 years in the prison. Therefore I look so nicely as I look. I looked in the same way when I came out from prison and I was 31 years old. I told to my judge, Your Honor, I am very likely a very stupid man. Because you call me a Nazi, but the Nazis called me a communist. If I would have been smart, I would have been a Nazi in 1944, and now I would be a communist. If I was so stupid to be a communist and a Nazi, I would be a Nazi and a communism. I cannot understand it. The stupid judge started to stutter. Of course, he was not so stupid, he was a crook. Now, coming back to the main point what I want to make, I cannot have in half an hour, I rather will stop in about 10, 12 minutes and I let you ask. You saw the film, I can only take out some spotlights. The important thing is, which is the message of Wallenberg for you, that I don't mind in what denomination you love God, only don't love God theoretically. Because if I love God theoretically, then I love my neighbor theoretically. religion. If they would have loved the Jews theoretically, all of them would have died. They had to love them practically, not theoretically. Yes? So please, regardless of your age and anything, don't remain lazy, okay? First, look a little bit for the objectives of an uncomfortable religious habit, which means out of your laziness and go on and do something. My second homeland, America, goes down therefore on the drain because everybody said, that's not my business, don't get involved. This phrase was created by the devil. If those Christian children would have not get involved, we would have not get the 48 names of the Jews in this factory. If I would have got involved, I don't know who would have done all this. Not because I'm so excellent. It seems so God wanted me to. I was totally, I don't want to tell about all my life, I plunged into the middle. I was not prepared to do this. Wallenberg was. He asked the Swedish government to appoint him. He was in Hungary since summer 44. I started to work from approximately 22nd of October 44. I did a job only for 2 months, but so that between 2 days I had sometimes only half an hour and I slept. You cannot give the Nazis time. You either believe that this man is in danger and needs immediate help, not patting on the shoulder. This patting on the shoulder, we don't go too far. Some either nasty or stupid people want to say that Wallenberg was basically motivated to do what he did because one of his grandparents was Jewish. I'm again the living witness that this is absolutely false. And I ask everyone in this room, are very few, so it doesn't apply to you. I ask every Hungarian to pray for this man at least once a week. Because while he's in Russian captivity, other Hungarians. I know personally a Hungarian to whom Wallenberg said in January 45, due to the great atrocities what the Russians do to the Hungarian women, and I want you to know that the Russians desecrated the women in body in my country 2.5 million. 8 years old girls, 82, 84, 85 years old women. Putting them to shame, they didn't even clean the woman. 5, 6, 8 of these beasts went over one woman in 2 hours. So don't have the dream and don't let yourself fool for this. What I don't like that our Jewish brethren don't realize that instead of Holocaust films now they should show all the time anti-communist film because this is the present danger. You want to become communist? Go on, but you cannot turn back. If somebody knows the miseries of the Jews as a brother, so help me God, I do know. But at the present moment, the danger hanging over our head is a damn system called communism. Who lie, who fool, who kill. Ask those Jews who come from Russia, what kind of a life is in Russia? So please, let us go back. I give you the final answer of Wallenberg. He said to one of the Hungarians, since the Russians behave so with the Hungarians, and at the present moment Moscow gave an order that at least for a few months they should not bother any Jew, to show that they are the liberators. I will go right away to Debrecen, which is a Hungarian city. In this time there was the Russian-appointed Hungarian puppet government. I will go there and I will talk to them that the Russians should stop doing that. The sweet Wallenberg was the same stupid idealist that I am. He thought that these people will listen to him, or he thought that this puppet government has any might over this so-called glorious Red Army, a stinky damn horde. There was once a sweet Russian who saved me from an evil Russian, but I'm not so sure whether 1 day or 2 days later the evil Russian didn't kill the other one, because I did not allow to be human. Not because the Russian people as Russian are bad, but if you are educated from birth on in a diabolical system, very few of the human nature can resist. So the order by Moscow was given that Raoul Wallenberg is an American spy. If you would say why, I give you a very probable answer. I'm not God, but I know the nature of communism. Raoul Wallenberg was a very aggressive man in a quiet nature, not as you had seen in the film. You know this Wallenberg film. A miserable, lousy production. And they were seriously responsible because those lousy people knew that I am alive and I live in a suburb of Buffalo, but they did not want to protect me because they didn't want the truth. Raoul Wallenberg was the same man as I am, but a great difference. We were determined, we were honest, but he was a quiet man and I'm a noisy man. If I could have instructed the Chamberlain to play in this film, he played like he would be me. No, Wallenberg was the same guy in a quiet tone. But the Russians knew that when they will come in, Wallenberg will be as determined against them as he was against the Nazis. They didn't wait for them. They put their hand on his mouth ahead, not waiting. This was the reason. They knew he's not an American spy. They didn't want that the man should be a troublemaker. So if Wallenberg would have been a real Christian in his heart, only a Jew, he would have said, okay, I see now the Jews, I go to the airport, I fly back to Sweden. This man was a God-motivated, real, true Christian. Who is your brother and sister? Every man. Fine. Until now the Jews were in danger, now the Hungarians, I go and I save them. So the sweet little bird walked into his own cage because they were already waiting for him. And from this time on he disappeared. Probably I save you one question because many people will say me or would say me, if you had the answer. Is he alive? Nobody knows. But I who suffered 5 years in communist prisons, exactly 57 months, 3 months less than 5 years, between 1948 and 53 in the so-called Stalin time. It was the last couple of years of this big miserable beast. And I can say we would have been several times happy, don't misunderstand, I don't say it sarcastically, happy if we would have been shot to death. Not to be killed is the worst, but how they treated us. For this sweet, nice angel Wallenberg, you want that he should be 42 years in Russian captivity. I wish he would be not alive after what I experienced. You cannot think, okay, maybe the Russians are a little less crooked than the Nazis just in this part of Russia can be. But even so, for just what you heard before, he is now 75 years old. He was just, yes, he was born in 1912. I can say you only the example of those people who let themselves convinced by God to put their belief into action. This example should motivate us. Starting up from the prophets of the Old Testament, continuing on the eternal paragon, Jesus Christ, coming down to all those people to whom the brotherhood in God was a reality. That we should wake up, asking first God for clear ideas, no confusion, looking into our own life, never mind how old we are. If God would tell me that you have 10 days, 5 years, so how would I arrange my life? And I want to do my very best, because I can lie to myself whatever I want. After my earthly life comes eternity, and I have to give responsibility, give a response, what I did in these 50, 60, 70 years. I don't like an animal motivation. I don't like that you should be afraid. Why can we not use the slogan, what the devil took out from our hands, turn it back in Christian sense? You hear the bad slogan in connection with sex and dope. Try it, you like it. Try to love God. Try to love the neighbor. Try to love God and neighbor heroically. My dear friends, you will have the personal experience that is good, so when you try it, you will like it. God bless you. If you have any questions, ask me. Don't think that any question, because many times my audience has a little funny complex, the question will be stupid. My sweet friends, there is no stupid question. The matter is so far from you. Anytime you can ask me smoothly. I'm not so narrow-minded. I will try to help you. Whatever question you want, please go on and ask.
Tibor, I think you should explain that the movie that you were talking about was the TV movie.
Was it about a year ago?
You said that...
There was a fiction on the life of Raoul Wallenberg. If we write a fiction on anybody, if somebody is honest who does this novel, film, he should search as much as possible. In case of Raoul Wallenberg, it is a very lucky situation that we have many, many things at hand. So we have the moral obligation, even if you put a little fiction into it, to move this so that it should correspond totally to the personality of this man. Not only due to our moral conviction, but to our busyness, how busy we were. I hope so far that we will not scandalize. I think if I would have been put in a bed beside the nicest woman, within 2 minutes I would have slept. I was totally exhausted. Not only morally I would have not done. You have no idea how we were totally exploited by our work. We wanted to be because we exposed our life. But we had both an honest moral conviction and we were super busy. Number two, just a year ago in Philadelphia, when I was invited by Leona Feldman, the lady you mentioned before, I was in the same hotel for almost a week with the same baroness with whom we never saw each other in 1944, only heard about each other through my boss, His Excellency Angelo Rotta. But we heard a lot. We kissed each other just like a brother and sister and we cried. And she said, so you were this awful guy I heard so and so. And I said, you were this angel I heard so. We saw each other after so many years first in our life. She is much older now and much more well-balanced and facing an eternity according to my belief. She got very little angry, but she was rather sad that why did they want to picture me as a not indecent woman. She loved and respected Wallenberg as a normal Christian being loves and respects another one. No sexy thing in between. She was in deep love with her husband. They were only about 2 years married. She had such a big tummy and a few weeks later gave life to her son. When she left Hungary and went back to Merania to her mother, there was no train involved. She left on a car with a cook and with a chauffeur. Wallenberg was never on the scene. You could watch the film that Angelo Rotta, the sweet, smiley, round-headed Italian, and this film looks like an Abyssinian, dark and long hair with a beard. In this time, Angelo, the Catholic priest, unless a monk, they could not have a beard. Nicholas Horthy, who was number one, a fairly nice guy. I don't say it because I'm a Hungarian. I know my history very well. I know what he did not do good, and I wish that we should have never a worse president here was Nicholas Horthy as a regent was for Hungary. I say it morally with all the responsibility as a Christian. That doesn't mean that he was on the top, but he was not so bad. As an outlooking, he was a beautiful man. When he and his wife appeared just like two actors, they looked so nicely. On the film you see a chubby guy who had no resemblance to Nicholas Horthy. But those people who made the film did not want to make an honest film. That's the simple answer. Another thing what is very important for you to know, as we had some so-called nice Nazis who were on paper a Nazi, but they were in the party to help us to save the Jews. She, Baroness Kemény, had a husband who was on paper on the Nazi cabinet. But if this man would have not done certain things, we could have done maximum 15% of this for what we try to do 100%. Never mind, when the trial was, they could not prove against her husband absolutely anything. What was the way how they executed him? He dared to be a member of the Nazi cabinet, so he was executed. So all of you who believe in eternity, the life cannot end here on earth. Somewhere had to be given justice what the earthly crooks could not give. This man did what he could do in this gangster cabinet as an honest man. What he was able to do, he rightly passed it over to his wife. His wife passed it over to Angelo Rotta and to Wallenberg, and so we were able to learn. Never mind that we are the living witnesses. The communists wanted revenge. Never mind on whom. And they took revenge, never mind whether the guy was really guilty or innocent. It resembles me very much when nowadays Demjanjuk, who has a name identity, is an evil man, but who is younger, who is in his older age 3 inches taller than the original was according to the documents, yet he will be tried and executed. But everybody who deals people unfairly should realize that once we shall fall in the hand of the living God, in the invisible hand of God, and we have to give account what we do here on earth, regardless who it is. I don't want to be nasty. I would like to put some of those people only for 1 year in this jail where I was for 5, and I would think a little bit, reorganize what is human dignity, what is human responsibility. When Christ said that every word you utter, you are responsible to God, how much more every action you do are responsible to God. My dear friends, I talk to you really so. I suffer so much in my life. At the present moment I'm not ill, thanks God, but I talk so if I would collapse now, I would like to continue my sentence in front of God. And I hope so I can. Any other question?
Is there such a thing as a good Russian communist? I have a missionary friend who was in China, and when the Russians came in, as a communist, they were told, they were good, they were fed, and all this kind of thing, but they ended in concentration camps.
At the beginning of my little speech, I said that we live in a world of confusion. We do. Our irresponsible communication media brainwash you every day. Our miserable books brainwash you every day. If you would have clear ideas, you should never say in your life, communist Russia, communist Poland, communist Hungary doesn't exist. Communist dominated Russia, communist dominated Poland, communist dominated Hungary exists. Which means that the majority of the population do not want this system. It is forced upon them. I can prove to you in horrible ways, if I would have made the America film, which was a half-lousy production, at least it was good for one reason, it proved for you naive people that yes, it can happen here. Yes. So this was definitely a good message of the film. But if I would have been the guy who produced this film, I would have started not 10 years after, at the beginning. And you, and your 90 years old mother, and your 8 years old granddaughter, the Russian would have laid on this girl and made her to cry, and would have laid on your daughter who is 35, and in the same time you will see the goodness and evilness in the same person. He would have gone over this woman. In the same time he would have put chocolate in the mouth in the same moment to the 2 years old girl. Because basically most of the Russians are very nice guys. But as I told you, this system wants to educate crooks, because an honest man they cannot lead. Of course, God made such a miracle that you see, I don't know how much you know about, in the last 10, 15 years, the religious hunger and demand in Russia is greater than ever. Which is again the graspable miracle of God, that we are so deeply in our spiritual umbilical cord, we are so bound to God that we shout for Him. So the communists are desperate in Russia. Why so many people would like to go to church? So don't say this the communism is forced on people. Not everybody is so bold right away to resist. If everybody would, only for a year, then all this system would collapse. We are not created, unfortunately. But don't think that those people living under this system, Russians, Poles, and the others, it doesn't mean that they are themselves communists. As a matter of fact, the official party members in Russia are no more than 7 or 8%. And I can take invisibly an oath that from this 7 or 8%, maybe 1 or 1.5% believe in it, no more. The communist leaders secretly run a highly capitalistic life. I come from somewhere where I have a little knowledge, and I'm still not as vividly as 30 years ago, but I'm still a little bit in connection with underground. I'm not, now I come to speak in behalf of Wallenberg. As a political speaker, I spoke more than 3,000 times against communism since fall 1950s. And in order to speak, again, if you are not a gangster, I hope so I'm not, I don't want to bubble something, I have competent information is what I devote.
After 1956, how did so many Hungarians get out of Hungary, Canada, and so on?
Because we, the freedom fighters, destroyed a great section, I don't know how many miles, between Austria and Hungary, so we destroyed the Iron Curtain. And this was the greatest proof, if you would have been not right away constantly brainwashed by your damn communication media, that if communism would be the system of the future, then why the hell did we so many young people come out? And we should remain there. Maybe our papas can come out. But we left since that time approximately 250,000 people. And from the 250,000 people, at least 150,000 were maximum 30 to 33 years old, all between 10 and 33. We had freedom fighters, 10, 12 years old children who were 2-3 days laying on the top of the roof, pissing on the same place, not going to lavatory, not eating anything, waiting until the communist comes out from there to shoot. We produced in 56 one of the greatest heroes, I tell you honestly, who is a little bit greater than the Hungarians, the Afghans. And we, the so-called pseudo-lousy Christians, are sitting like the Romans in the Colosseum, watching how the Christians die. We sit now and watch how the Afghans die. Our lousy damn Congress is scratching the head and the tummy and the fanny whether we should give help or not. No, we should wait until the communists come here, yes? I came from the hell. If on earth is a human hell, this is communism. I am against anything what is evil, but I don't want to be labeled first an anti-Nazi or anti-communist. I would like first to be labeled a pro-Christian, hopefully. Any question? Jewish question, Christian question, whatever you want. One thing I can tell you honestly, the man who spoke to you had fairly serious academic studies and by the special grace of God an enormous life experience. From my 57 months in jail, first days of November 48 until August 53, 57 months, 3 months less than 5 years, I spent 3.5 years hermetically closed. From March the 11th, 1950 until August 53, we had absolutely no communication with the outside world. I was in Hungary, I could have been in Siberia, nobody knew about me. You see, here's another thing. When our government did not send me to the United Nations, and they knew my life, did not send me to be a cultural attaché to Bonn or to Vienna, I was able to handle those lousy communists. When they start to complain how bad we Americans are, my first question is, you shut up, destroy first your Iron Curtain. Who keeps millions in slavery should keep his mouth shut, out of the United Nations. You know how stupid we are? You heard so many people want to move out of the United Nations. Why? To give a free place to the communists? All the communist-dominated nations should march out of the United Nations. We should stay. The little children come to you. Buy UNICEF. Buy these cards. You know what you do? By all the cards you buy, you help the communists. But they send the little innocent children to fool you. I know what is going on. I have a lot of Protestant friends who spit on the Council of Churches because the Council of Churches sent an enormous amount of money in the last 25 years to communism. Again, if Christ would come here and would say, on what basis do you dare to send this money, but you nice believing Lutherans and Calvinists and so are giving to you, how do you dare to spend that for this? I can tell you I have too much knowledge, unfortunately. The only thing I don't know, I can give you a good example from Christ. You remember when he talked about that the rich guy went to hell and the poor guy went to Abraham? And the poor guy and the rich guy says to Abraham, okay, at least say to this poor guy, you should go back and say to my brethren, they should not behave so because I will get to the same place. And what is Abraham's answer? No, son, they have Moses and they have their prophets. If they don't believe them, even if a man comes back from grave, they will not believe. Many of the leaders here will be responsible for God because some of us who are here, by the grace of God, we are so innocent. I mean, in honesty, I'm a little fallible man like you, but I say so much the truth, and those damn guys don't want to listen to us. And when once we will be occupied by communism, oh God! Not this goes to heaven who says, my Father, but who does the will of my Father will go to heaven. Not crying, go on and do something. This is what I come back again. Let us go ask God for clear ideas and resolve nature to do something. Otherwise, I would like here that I should have not come here in vain, and I hope so I did not. At least you are here a living angel, and many people who helped her. But go on, and I would like now, you were so nice, and you started as a pledge, not for self-boosting. I want to tell you that several years ago, the very first Freedom Foundation awarded me, because I thought so that my second homeland, the United States, who was so nice to give life to us with my wife, to our children, this homeland deserves from me as a Hungarian poet and writer something, a spiritual bouquet. Several years ago, in 1968, I taught in the Albany Academy. My main thing I did here in this country was teaching Latin and German and history. Called social studies. And at this time, beside my teaching, I was a radio commentator. And on 4th of July, in 1968, for me it was 3rd of July because every Wednesday was my broadcasting, I gave in my broadcast a new American creed. Same idea as Taylor Page wrote in 1918, but a little bit more dynamic. I do think so. When we finish now this day, which we started with a pledge, you don't have to stand. If you want, you can stand. I will read for you my new American creed, that you should really grasp it, that this man, with one hand wants to hold God, with the other hand his adopted country, and with his heart, his old country where he was born. I believe in God, our Heavenly Father, Father of each individual and of every nation. I believe that the United States of America was founded by God and by the people which represented divine principles, namely the principle of freedom, equality, justice, humanity, and the most important principle of individual and human life, love. I believe that God wanted the American forefathers to establish this nation to become an outstanding example for the world by realizing the above principles. I have to believe, by the enormous number of the daily crimes and treasons committed by several members of our society, that we are on the way to destroy our nation by becoming faithless to the ideas and practice of our forefathers. But I just believe firmly that by the help of God and the responsible citizens we can stamp out the crimes and wrongdoings, the treasons and crooked actions of educators, politicians and of others. We can become again a free nation in spirit and atmosphere. We can become equal in rights and duties. We can practice justice and humanity in divinely human sense and become protectors of our principles here in the United States and in the entire world, among ourselves and among all nations. So help us God. We did exactly the same work. Anytime the needy Jews needed us, in any second we were everywhere by the help of God. Food, medicine, taking them out from the wagons, bringing them home, protecting them, hiding them. So practically, some of the real relation how we were, I brought it up in this 1 hour, I call it videotape. So if once you can come together, because the reason I did not concentrate so much on our relation, I wanted rather to concentrate on his message, that his determination, his boldness, saved a lot of human life. And I thought this was more important now for this evening than to go in certain details. So if I was short in this thing, you forgive me, but I think so I was responsible to give you the more important message.